The Russians have transferred additional forces to the Transnistrian direction. Are you observing their buildup in specific areas? Then, in your opinion, what could this be preparation for?
You meant the Dnipropetrovsk direction, because in fact, nothing has been transferred to the Transnistrian one. They have enough forces there already. The Russians have indeed transferred a certain number of forces and assets to the Dnipropetrovsk direction. This primarily concerns their units that these are drone operators. In addition, the enemy is now transferring some groups that have been trained at training grounds in the temporarily occupied territories of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia regions, and Crimea. These are groups specifically intended to carry out and oversee rotation activities for those military servicemen who are currently stationed there. In this direction, primarily those who are currently stationed on the islands. They have several observation posts on the islands, and it is precisely this personnel that is now trying to undergo rotation.
And overall, is there an increase in the intensity of strikes in the south? How noticeable has this escalation been in recent days, and specifically in which directions?
First of all, the enemy has indeed increased the number of kamikaze drone strikes, specifically FPV drones, and has increased the number of shellings. Today, we're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 kamikaze drone strikes. On average, about 1,700 to 1,800 per day. If before we were talking about, for example, 600 to 700, now it's almost twice as many. In addition, the number of artillery shellings has also increased. We're talking about a figure of over 500 shellings using up to 2,000 munitions. Previously, when we discussed this, we cited numbers like 300 to 350 shellings and 1,400 to 1,500 munitions. In addition, the enemy is currently carrying out rather active assault operations in the Oleksandrivka direction, where they are trying to advance deeper into our territory. Every day we record 2 to 2.5 dozen assault actions here. In addition, there are separate combat clashes when the enemy tries to infiltrate deeper into our defenses. Over the past day, 6 such combat clashes were recorded, and in total, there were 10 combat clashes, with 6 of them specifically in the Sukhetske direction. Here, the enemy is also quite actively carrying out drone strikes and artillery shelling of our positions. And as usual in the Orikhiv direction, the enemy continues its assault actions and keeps trying to approach Stepnohursk through the settlements of Plavny and Primorske, where they want to finally push the defense forces out of these settlements and from our positions, so they are conducting operations here. There are also quite active assault actions here.
And just recently in the Zaporizhzhia direction, the defense forces liberated Shcherbaki, and part of Stepov. How has this affected the operational depth and the enemy's ability to counterattack?
Indeed, we have improved our tactical position by pushing the enemy out of these settlements, taking under final control of these settlements. However, the enemy has tried several times to recapture these settlements and these positions from us, and has increased the amount of firepower directed at our positions. Nevertheless, the defense forces are holding their ground, maintaining control over what has been taken, and are attempting to carry out similar assault actions in other directions.
Mr. Vladislav, thank you for joining us to discuss the operational situation on the southern front. We heard from Vladislav Voloshin, spokesperson for the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine. Next, we will talk about the operational situation in the Kramatorsk direction. The QR code and the website address have already appeared on our screen. This is the nationwide project Druzy Deshev, Friends Are Cheaper. By scanning the code, you can make a one-time donation or set up a monthly subscription to support the 82nd Separate Bukovina Brigade, or you can choose any unit of the Air Assault Forces and help them. And joining us now is Ihor Tambiev, Staff Sergeant of the 3rd Category in the Communications Unit of the 82nd Brigade. Mr. Ihor, welcome.
We adore you again, Mr. Volodymyr.
What is the operational situation in your brigade's area of responsibility in the Kramatorsk direction?
The situation in our area of responsibility is, as always, tense. As you can see, it's tense everywhere here in Donbas. Right now, our brigade is operating in the Dobropillia direction, as well as in the Kramatorsk direction. Our battalions are participating in clearing out this Dobropillia Salient, which formed not so long ago. We're doing pretty well. We cleared the village of Bobrivka and recently cleared the village of Sukhetske, where we captured many prisoners and many enemies were killed and destroyed. But it can be said that the enemy is constantly attacking with small infantry groups, as they always do. And now they're trying to use vehicles. They're trying to choose a time when the weather conditions are right. The weather isn't very favorable for drone flights, and in this way they try to advance at least somehow. Mostly they attempt to bypass our positions and cut off our supply routes. But we know which routes they use, and even if the weather is bad, we prepare for this in advance. We lay mines and use other means to make sure they can't pass along these routes. Because we detect them, we know how they want to act, and we try to destroy them even as they're approaching.
Speaking of the coming winter, I wanted to pause here for a moment. You mentioned it, and according to a serviceman from the 30th Brigade, which is also defending the country in the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians are really looking forward to the frost to intensify their mechanized assaults. How realistic is this for your sector, and what countermeasures are you preparing?
Well, of course, these conditions matter because it's autumn now, it's raining, and obviously they can't get through everywhere, but the frost will help them with that. But even now they are trying to advance, and I think that it's the mining and the effective work of our artillery and drones that are holding them back. This is just like it was last winter, just like it was in the Kursk region. They're doing exactly the same things, and we're ready for it because the enemy won't come up with anything new there. They might try to move in with a buildup of equipment, but effective mining and the work of our drones, and right now we have very good ones. They're developing. We now have a separate battalion of unmanned systems that was recently established, and every battalion has a company of strike UAVs with very experienced pilots who have been with the brigade since the very beginning, back in Zaporizhzhia. In other words, these people have already seen everything there is to see, so I don't think any of this will be new for us because even here they haven't used much equipment. But at the moment when, maybe it's even out of desperation, because at this Dobropillia Salient they tried to break through to their own people, those who had advanced several kilometers forward, and they had no supply lines, so they were trying any way they could to reach them. They used equipment even though they understood it would be destroyed, and that's exactly what we did together with other units of the armed forces of Ukraine. So in winter, it will be more or less the same, and if we prepare for it, then we'll be ready for whatever is new. In the same way, they will all burn and die, just like it's happening now. It's just that there are so many of them at this moment. We're simply talking to a lot of prisoners right now, and they're all different. And, there are contract soldiers, people from prisons, and recently there was a Marine who told us how their companies are being wiped out several times over. So they arrived, there were 150 people, and out of all his acquaintances, only 7 were left. So now they will recruit people again and send them off once more, either in vehicles or on foot. That's how the enemy operates. Unfortunately, there are just so many of them, but we will destroy them, and I believe that we will succeed.